So good morning and welcome to App Promotion Summit London 2023. Thank you for all taking the time to attend today. I had the privilege of doing the opening talk also at APS Berlin at the beginning and end of last year, and it was a fantastic event, great exhibitors, great speakers, lots of great content. So I'm very confident that today will be a fantastic use of our most valuable asset, time, right? So my name is David Woods. I'm the Director of Sales at Data AI. Some of you might know us as App Annie. We'll talk about that in a second. And I'll be talking about 10 to 15 minutes today, just to give you some insights into how the mobile industry has performed over the last year and how we can look to find growth in 2023. We very much like these opening speeches to frame kind of what's happened in the industry in terms of downloads, growth, opportunities, and then talk about the future ahead. Hopefully most of you are familiar with who Data AI are. But for those of you who aren't, just a quick recap. We used to be known as App Annie, kind of been in the space of data analytics for apps and the leader in mobile analytics for around 10 years now. We rebranded Data AI last year, and many customers haven't even realized this. So I'll talk a little bit about why we changed. We used to just be analytics for apps, but now I think we're seeing mobile and apps being in many more places, smart apps, web apps, etc. So we've expanded our data set outside of just mobile, but also leveraging AI. I think it's harder and harder to get data out of Apple and out of Android and other places. So to reinforce that data, we're leveraging AI, but also to be able to give you predictive insights. So rather than just being able to give you, here's what's happening in the apps in the world, we can also begin to give you actionable insights that you can work on and predictable insights to help you grow. So full disclosure, here's some of the customers that we work with, top brands trusting in Data AI. Full disclosure, this presentation has been put together by our data science and research team, people far more intelligent and brighter than I am. So you'll please excuse me if I do have to refer to this deck a few times. There's a wealth of information and metrics. I'd hate to sort of share the wrong information with you, so please excuse me if I have to look at this a little bit today. We're going to start by running through some market trends. Data AI every year shares the State of Mobile report. Comes out in normally mid-January, so we'll be running through some of the key insights from there at a very high level. And then we'll be running into some future predictions as well. If you'd like access to our State of Mobile report, we've got a stand here. You can download it from our website, and we've got a QR code that you can scan at the end as well. The data that we'll be sharing today, very high level, but data, I take it, very granular, so we can see how our apps are performing on these levels as well. Right, so let's start with some sort of key market trends. We can see here on the far left that globally downloads grew 11% year on year. So a brand new record that we've never seen before. Very strong growth from a global perspective and standpoint. This is predominantly driven by China, India, and the US being the top three markets. More locally to us, Germany was number 16 in downloads for the world, and the UK closely behind at number 17. So very strong measures of sustained downloads even in our mature markets. App Store spend. Here, we define App Store spend as consumer spend in the App Stores. This is where spending where you're transacting through the iOS or Google Play Store apps. And one of the big stories that came out of the report this year is that the whole App Store consumer spend did decline 2% year on year. So that's around 176 billion. We believe this is predominantly down to rising inflation, macroeconomic environments, and the rising cost of living. There's less disposable income around. However, as we'll see shortly, this trend is predominantly driven by a decrease in gaming spend. And I think gaming spend was huge during COVID. We all had many more hours and free time to spend, but that gaming spend is down, and that has brought this spend down. However, spends in other areas, consumer, leisure, service sort of apps, continue to grow, and we'll dive into that in a second. Global ad spend, we saw $336 billion spent on mobile ads, which was 14% up year on year. And we forecast next year, well, this year, 2023 now, that we'll see $362 billion, which is up around 7%, 7.5%. So a bit of a softening due to some of the economic headwinds, but with some of the advertising space and targeting and pricing capability sort of challenges as well, but still continue to see strong growth. And in terms of time spent in apps, we're still seeing consistent, strong year-on-year growth here. This is being heavily driven by emerging markets such as Brazil and Indonesia, hugely growing market for apps. We're still seeing growth in mature markets in the UK and Germany, for example. So overall, we've seen a 9% increase in total hours spent in apps. So clearly, we're all in the right place, right? We're all in the mobile space. Consumers are downloading apps more than ever, spending more than ever, apart from gaming, but we'll dive into that in a second, and also spending more time in apps as well. So more than ever, the consumers and the world are moving into apps. So just to give, let's have a look on, we've kind of covered that one a little bit, but some more granular details so you can see how that's progressed since January 2019 up till today over the last 3 years. But just to give a little more granular detail on gaming versus non-gaming spend, we can see that gaming spend has dropped a little bit since peak COVID times. That's natural. I think we all had more disposable income and potentially more free time then as well. However, spending on purchases or entertainment or services and apps has continued to grow. So once again, the message is clear. Brands need to invest in mobile because that's where our consumers are spending their time and indeed their money. Okay, just a quick insight into here. You can sort of see the Brazils, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Singapore is driving the most growth. There's still strong growth in the likes of Turkey, UK, France, and Germany as well. Right, here we can see the top apps in the UK by downloads, consumer spend, and time spent in apps. Notable apps in the social sector, TikTok, shows how cool I am, really out of date, down with the kids, obviously. TikTok, my partner spends all day in it. Top of the download charts for the UK, followed by long-standing favourite WhatsApp and BeReal at number 4, showing the rise in authenticity and real social experiences empowered by mobile services. WhatsApp remains the most used app in the UK, despite increasing popularity of TikTok, ranking number 6 for monthly active users. Facebook Messenger and Instagram also have large user bases. What's particularly impressive is TikTok's upending of the social networking industry's monetization tactics. They flipped the script and now have consumers paying directly into the app to tip their favorite content creators. They've generated so much revenue by doing this, they're now ranked number 3 for consumer spend behind industry leaders Disney and Tinder. Other notable areas include Vinted. Vinted ranked number 3, very fast-growing app, showing the power of second-hand goods, demand for second-hand goods, being budget-friendly, environmentally friendly, and conscious income-spending consumers nowadays. McDonald's ranked highly in the UK, in the top 10, predominantly actually fueled by a very clever World Cup campaign, which we'll touch on a little bit later as well, and also as a key sponsor of the FIFA World Cup. The World Cup grew huge downloads and demands across many apps. Google One ranked number 4 by consumer spend, showing consumers are keen to leverage mobile subscriptions to get access to their data and files across all their devices. And interestingly, Duolingo jumped back up to number 7 as Brits began to want to travel again, want to get back out there after COVID, and a demand to learn the language of the countries that they sort of may be visiting. So now we're going to jump on to a little bit about mobile gaming. Worth noting that despite the slight decline in gaming spend, as I mentioned, the gaming still represents 66% of total App Store spend. We downloaded 90 billion games and spent 110 billion in 2022 on gaming. What we can see here is that while spend is down, downloads are still incredibly strong, as is the time spent in games. Less than COVID, but still considerably strong. And we actually talked about in the Berlin talk, we don't have a slide on this today, but in the Berlin talk, 3 new games managed to crack the top 10s for downloads last year. And that shows that there's still room in that very busy, convoluted sector. There's still room to launch an innovative, exciting new game and generate that demand and sort of crack. So I think that's inspiring for us all to see there is still opportunities in a very, very busy market. So where was consumer spend in gaming in 2022? The circular image on the right is from Data AI, and the inner circle that you'll see there is the App Store's taxonomy. So we do this not just for gaming, we do this for all apps and all brands as well. Unfortunately, if you look into the categorization or taxonomy of the App Store, it's quite limited. So what we do is we've done a lot of work and research to break them down into much more subgenres as well. So the circle on the right is from Data AI's Gaming Taxonomy, Gaming IQ. And here we can see Game IQ is showing that spend, we can see the strategy games, and in particular, 4X battle games are driving a huge amount of spend. And on the right, you can see the top 8 gaming genres and how they perform in terms of downloads and spend. Again, we can see that most genres have seen a decline in spend. However, sports and party games typically kind of bucked this trend. This was likely once again down to the World Cup, a huge global event where we saw a very strong increase for football, for sporting apps, but also in terms of the top party apps. And we saw that particularly before and after games. I think groups of people coming together and therefore looking to download party apps, not just watch the game, but enjoy those social times with their friends here as well. On a quick diversion, we see this quite a lot. For example, the Oscars a couple of weeks ago, we saw huge increases in downloads and demands for apps such as Netflix, for HBO, for Paramount, for Amazon, where the Oscars films could be accessed. McDonald's also saw huge increases in downloads, not just for the World Cup, but also for the Oscars, as they promoted their app and advertisements all around this sort of section as well. So the learning here is if we can look forward to the different events that may be in the calendar coming up this year, how can we leverage those events, perhaps get some additional brand awareness or do some cross-promotion for our brands and apps. This is Game IQ, but not by spend, but by downloads. What's interesting here is we can see that whilst strategy games were driving revenue, arguably the most important metric, they aren't driving downloads. Hyper-casual games are still seeing the most download usage. The message here could be if you're looking to advertise your brand in a game, hyper-casual is probably still the place to be. Right, so that's a little bit about the state of mobile in 2022. Obviously, very high level with the limited time we have today. We have all this information on all the apps and data AI, so welcome to come to our stand and we can give you a bit of a free app performance report about you and indeed your competitors as well. But on to the next section, a short section, which is finding growth in 2023. We wanted to show the winners and losers by app genre, where we saw growth and where we saw decline. Here we see absolute growth year on year. And when we say absolute, what we mean is it shows the delta if we took 2022 downloads and let's say integrated travel service and then subtracted the performance in 2021. So on the chart, we can see downloads, consumer spend, and time spent. And once again, this is powered by App IQ, so much more detailed categories and taxonomy and genres than perhaps you might see typically in the App Store. So consumer spend, dating, short video and OTT, so streaming apps like Disney Plus or HBO Max. Those generally across the board had great years for growth in consumer spend from people subscribing or paying at the forefront of the annual subscription. Short videos were driven by a lot of tipping for live streamers, which is relatively universal. But then you start to see other things emerge. So integrated career platforms are now a big area of growth in the UK. Also, upskilling and learning apps and audiobooks, such as Audible, a huge increase in demand there as well, so prominent force for downloads in the UK. We also saw similar trends across, not always in the travel services, of large increases in demand in travel services, but also in a more financial conscious world nowadays, we're seeing a huge drive and increase in coupons and reward apps as well. Interestingly enough, we did a talk of Future of Retail a couple of weeks ago, and we did a talk about Waitrose there. Waitrose recently launched personalized coupons in their apps, which then drove double download figures for them. They got about a 100% increase on downloads thanks to personalized coupons. So any way that we can look to make our apps more cost conscious is a great opportunity there as well. The same chart, but for gaming, we can see that puzzle games by and large, word puzzle games in particular, drove the most downloads. Wordle being a huge part of that, the Wordle sensation which sort of swept the world early on last year. Hyper-casual is very much still dominating downloads as well. However, whilst it's dominating, we did actually see one of the largest decreases in demand. But I think such a large part of the world demand for gaming apps in the COVID times is natural. Perhaps we're seeing a slight decrease there. And then some more core games like Mirror and Coin Master driving spend. We talked about how Strategy 4X was driving spend, but we can also see, whilst once again, sort of mimicking that hyper-casual story, whilst it's a very large consumer spend over the years, that's also probably causing some of that decline as well this year. Right, so let's come back to the puzzle games and dive a little deeper into that section and give an example there. And I've looked at how you can find growth via the App Store. So in the UK, we saw that by and large, puzzle games was the biggest growth for downloads, Wordle being a huge part of that, as we've mentioned. But we can't rely on the App Store definition of puzzle, because it's so incredibly broad. There's over 25,000 different games, like Sudoku, Jigsaw, and even escape games that the App Store defines under puzzle. So by using Data.ai's GameIQ, our own app classification, you can get instant actionable insights for thousands of games, but really understanding the subgenre that's important to you. So this is important when you're trying to compare the performance of your app to another app. You're not comparing it to apps that perhaps are in a very different sector, but the App Store just tends to classify as the same. So here we can identify, so for the puzzle world category, we can see, for instance, main KPIs, downloads, share, revenue. So we can identify top performing apps and changes in performance. And we can see in the mapping that Wordle stayed very strong. Wordscape, WordGuess, Scrabble Go improving during the year. The final area I want to touch on is overall app performance. So most companies come to Data.ai to like to learn about how their app is performing, be able to compare their app with their competitors, and try and find competitive advantages. So with that in mind, we recently launched something called NPS, which can kind of be seen as like a credit score for apps. Publishers like to keep tabs on the competition. However, it's quite a difficult time prioritizing how you're doing against your competitors in terms of sentiment, in terms of monetization, in terms of engagement. So we created a tool that allows you to instantly see how your app is performing against those sort of 4 key metrics of acquisition, engagement, monetization, and sentiment, and compare them to your competitors. Performance score here is used using our own data science methodologies. To ensure score comparisons are accurate, your choices are benchmarked against all other apps in your type sort of genre. So scores reflect the entire group, category, or genre. So let's see how this works. For example, if you're Tinder. We saw Tinder number 2 in their sort of genre of dating apps. Bumble was number 6. Hinge was number 8. So we're ranked in the top 10 apps by consumer spend in 2022. With NPS, you can automatically identify fast movers in your category, and Hinge is one of those movers. With NPS, you can easily and visually identify how any app, like yourself and your competitor, is performing. So here we can see that Hinge is doing as well as Tinder in all areas apart from sentiment. So for example, they may now wish to dive into that and see exactly that sort of area of how they can improve. You can check your own mobile performance score, either at our stand or using that QR code. We can download the State of Mobile Report 2023 here as well. And we're also launching a new report, which I think is going to really kind of shake up the industry a little bit, which is our ad revenue. It's a new report that gives you visibility into your ad revenue performance and that of any app out there, across any app that is driving revenue through ads, enable you to refine and maximize strategy via ad monetization and ads. Feel free to pop by the stand for more. Thank you, and have a great day. Thanks.